The TV show, it's fantastic. When I actually love the movies.
Movies are great, yeah.
The movies are great, but I was watching some episodes yesterday night, and I was thinking how difficult it is to do comedy nowadays. You know what I mean? I think it's riskier right now than when they made the movies.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah, there's something to be said about that for sure. I mean, there's there's always conversations, I feel like, in comedy about like cancel culture and you can't say anything anymore and yada yada yada. Here's the thing, I think you can say anything you want as long as it's funny. Like if it's genuinely funny, then people will get behind it. And if it's not, and you get in trouble, like it's always a line that you have to walk. And if you're afraid of that line, then you shouldn't be in comedy in the first place. Like I take a small amount of umbrage with the people who say that you can't say anything anymore. For
you
sure.
know what? I agree.
You can say whatever you want as long as you're fine with whatever consequences come your way.
Agree totally with you. Even in the 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Seth MacFarlane was taking risk. You know what? When he was like supposedly more open to talk about a lot of things. You know, he's always has a very sharp sense of humor, very intelligent one.
Yes, very much so. Always a very intelligent sense of humor. Always very, as you said, sharp, very incisive. It tends to like cut to the core of what makes something funny, and is very often, most often I would say, done in a way where like, there's a good quote, I forget who it's by, art is getting away with it, and I think that comedy very much is sort of exemplifies that, where you gotta be able to get away with it, and if there's one thing that Seth MacFarlane is really good at doing, it's getting away with it.
Definitely. Also, I think comedy is the most difficult genre for me to do as a writer, as an actor, as a director. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very hard task to do great comedy.
Yeah, for sure. I think part of that comes from like there's different formulas that people use for comedy. You need to have the intelligence to be able to like craft a joke well and craft the comedy well, but you also need the ability to see that like comedy and drama, you know, there's a reason that it's like the two masks, right? The comedy and the tragedy mask.
Exactly.
They're two sides of the same coin. They are a part of the same sort of flow and universe. And part of what can make it sticky is when people treat comedy as a separate thing, when really it falls under the same umbrella.
It's a thin line.
Yeah, it's a very thin line. And, you know, it's like, you know, talking more about the things that Seth has done, especially recently, you look at like The Naked Gun. Liam Neeson is famous as one of like the most deathly serious,
tough looking,
like incredibly like tough, like God, like he brings that energy to things, and that's exactly what makes that movie so funny. Like, yeah.
Oh, tell us to our audience how it is to shoot a scene in TED. I can have, you know, an idea, but I want you, in your own words, how it is to interact as an actor with the character that we see on the screen, but actually what happens when you're taping it.
Right. So, I mean, I know there's interviews with Seth and with the VFX team that go into this a little bit, but just to give an overview, like when we're blocking and rehearsing the scene, we'll be using like a life-size stuffed version of Ted that's sort of being puppeteered by Blair, who's the VFX head. And we'll sort of figure out where he's going to be in space like that. Once it's time to shoot, anytime that the bear would be on camera, there's nothing there. It's completely gone.
Nothing there.
There's some like really cool programs VFX-wise that make it so that the cameras, as they're looking around, can see where he would be. But for us actors, it's its own particular kind of challenge where we have to completely imagine him being there.
But as an actor, do you hear someone saying the lines of
Yes, Seth is there directing every
Seth is
episode.
actually
Yes,
there.
Seth is there because he's directing every episode, right? So he's just off camera. He's looking at his monitors at all of the shots that are currently lined up. And if Ted is in the scene, he's doing the voice and he's going back and forth with us.
How can you control your not laughing at the scenes? You know what I mean?
It's tough. No,
we're
yeah.
humans, you know. After all,
No, 100%. Like sort of like we were talking about before, but the best way, if you can, is to tap into like what is making the scene dramatic and start trying to take it as seriously as possible. But when you're opposite Alana Ubach or Scott Grimes, it's so hard. You can't not break sometimes.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Also, the 90s, my friend. That's a very particular period, you know.
I don't know.
I was not.
Yeah.
You were not even born
Yeah.
in the 90s, but I remember so many things about that. I love to live, you know, nowadays, you know, in the moment. But the 90s were very particular, you know what I mean? In every sense. I was very young, you know what I mean? And I was like trying to learn a lot of stuff and capture the culture everywhere. In your perception, what happened in that decade from the things that you had learned and being in that area and the TV show?
Yeah, I'll tell you, my perception of things that happened in that decade, I'll tell you, that was a wild decade for me. I turned 1, I turned 2, I turned 3. Turning 3, but no, because at that point we're in 2000. So I turned 1 and I turned 2 in that decade. It was crazy. I had a goldfish. I had a lot of stuffed animals. I had a dog that we ended up having to give away to my grandma, and that was very sad. So the 90s were largely a very sad time for me because we had to give up that dog.
They were sad years.
It was very sad 2 years, the 90s. But I mean, you know, like you say, it's a very particular time. Like the cultural sort of like residue that we get from that, maybe residue is the wrong word, but there's a lot of these interviews in a row and I can't always find the exact perfect word. But, you know, we get so much stuff that lasts from them. Like Jurassic Park we talk about in season 1, which is one of my favorite movies, the original Jurassic Park. Like there's so much that Flash Gordon, which I made sure to watch before we started shooting season 1. But like, yeah, there's ways to connect to it to actually get to finally answering your question. And that's through like the culture and the media of the time.
Also high school.
High school. Yeah, high school, for me, high school was an odd thing. I was working a lot during high school. I would say I was in class maybe half the time, maybe sometimes more, sometimes less. So for me, the connection to the high school experience, you know, in shooting these 2 seasons has been very fun. And a lot of it has been similar to what mine was when I was actually there, which is hanging out with shithead friends and just fucking around doing nothing.
Max, thank you much for the interview and have a great time here in Mexico City.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Heraldo Podcast, un lugar para tus oídos.